Hi, I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered. The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered. The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered. The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered.
Okay. Dispatch, Unit 1. Unit 1, yes, dispatch. Right. No, the mayor's an idiot. No. Oh, what? Oh, that went over the airline? Are we live? Honey, are we? Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. You know, it's just... You got to be careful of open mics when you transmit. The mayor is not an idiot. All right, and in Philadelphia, the mayor is a really good guy. I know him personally. Welcome to One Hartford, my friends. We are back as irreverent as can possibly be.
Are we going to debate your last statements?
It's not fair to talk about the mayor of Philadelphia like that. The city of brotherly love. We're going to talk about all kinds of things, but before we get started, let's introduce you to the who's who right here, the one and only Kevin Brookman, which you all know. He is an investigative blogger here in the city of Hartford. His popularity is growing. He was on Face the State this Sunday.
I know. Isn't that something?
Face, I hear you want to run for mayor.
Hey, he looks like a real...
I was asked if I would run for mayor.
Hey, he looks like a real Republican when he was at that Face the State.
But he's not a Republican.
No.
He's not a Republican. He's a Democrat.
Those days are gone, and I would have to move to another town because there is no Republican Party in Hartford anymore.
Are there any elected Republicans currently sitting in positions of power in Hartford?
Just registrar voters, and I'm not sure if that's actually...
They weren't registered.
Actually, he wasn't really...
He was not
appointed.
They were, yeah, I think they win by default. They have to have one.
Or he was transferred. The Republican that won retired, and so the sitting
After
Republican
he conducted a sham and
One
didn't tell
Well,
anybody.
now you're asking. Well, also joining us, Bishop John Selders. Welcome back, sir. It's good to see you.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
And life is treating you fairly well?
Life is good. I can't complain, and if I did, it wouldn't do any good anyway.
Right.
All right, so it's still as busy as can be.
Am busy. That's the truth.
Well, we're glad that you carved out a little time for us here at One Hartford. The city needs you.
I love my One Hartford family. I do.
All right, and of course we have Hyacinth Yennie from the Maple Avenue NRZ, the most powerfulest. Oh. That's how Sam says it, so I have to add the ist on there. The most powerfulest NRZ in the city. So how you doing, Hyacinth?
Oh, I'm doing just great.
And you left
Wonderful
out
morning.
She's the co-host of We the People.
And co-host of the ever-popular, ever-expanding We the People. You know, I've been trying to get We the People on our network, but you know, the loyalty that Kevin has to Hartford Public Access is just phenomenal. I mean, he won't leave the place.
Maybe if you start leaving blood-stained napkins around your floor, we'll feel as though we're at public access. And,
well, let's not talk about the good.
Yes, right. We don't want to hear about
station.
that.
Or maybe if you just never showed up, we'd feel like it, more welcome here, like public access, where we never see the executive director.
Well, I'm at home, so I have to show up.
I think that's where she is.
Dispatch, Unit 3, donut break. So what's going on with the Hartford Police Department and these? Have you heard about the gorillas in the midst, the N-word, all kinds of things? What does this say?
The culture. You know, where I came from, it was out of many one people. It's not a matter of color or creed. You're just one person. You're just a person. You know, in this country, oh yeah, you're class in different race, and you know. So I think that's what's going on with this country. There's too much racism, in this country in general. You know, we don't get it that this is the melting pot of the world and this is people of all colors. It's like Jesus said, if I make it all one color, it wouldn't look good, right? We have to make it in different colors to make it beautiful. All right? So again, some people are just what they are. And, you know, racism is taught, to be honest with you. And that's why children will play with each other without even worrying about what color you are. But as they grow older, because of the adults, they can start seeing the difference, you know, of calling different people different names and stuff like that. So I think the culture has to be changed, and I think maybe we could do a better job. I would think even our church could do a better job of, you know, bringing that out to the open and let people understand that we're all, if we cut each other, we're the same blood, okay? So why aren't we thinking that we're just one people? Inferiority, right? Education should be that, maybe that thing that says, well, you're more inferior than me because you have more education than I am, but not color, you know?
Well, but you know, we've got to say even the Pope is getting up to speed in the last couple days. So
The Pope is great. I love that Pope. You know?
The Pope
That's
is
between you and God, not me. All right.
I think we're focusing on two issues. One is the gorillas in the mist comment by a sergeant, and the other one is the dispatcher using the N-word over the radio. And you know, I don't necessarily want to see the dispatcher lose his job, but it's just, to me, for that word to come off your lips so easily, it's rolling around in your head. It's the same thing as if you came over the radio with the F word. It's not acceptable, and you're supposed to have a filter between your mind and your lips to stop that from happening. The gorillas in the mist, I think that was probably somebody just trying to be funny, and after he said it, probably realized what a mistake he made. But it's a type of thing, there's certain things you just don't say. And I think that comes down to more of a sensitivity issue and using your brain a little more.
Yeah, but don't you think though? I mean, this is in the wake of the Trayvon Martin and the Zimmerman
I think that was
trial.
the tough part of it.
Yeah, you know, and here we are in again rediscovering ourselves here in New England as a culture based on, in fact, in some ways, the racial climate of our beginnings. And let's go all the way back to our beginnings, and then it's not hard to then see how the through lines are in and around people. You were talking about culture, how people are raised, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. I think in public society, in civil service, we get, as we the people, get to say this is what is acceptable and this is what is not acceptable, regardless to what your personal opinions are or your personal ideologies are.
But the other part is, racism is not just a one-way street. I remember when I was running for city council and someone told me that they would never vote for a white person. And I looked at her, I said, how would you take it if I said I would never vote for a black person? It goes both ways, and it's just as, you know, cutting when someone makes comments toward a white person or whatever. And the other part is the N-word only a bad word if it's used by a white person? Why is it that in black culture, it's in rap, it's in song, you know, you listen to people with their music blaring as they go down the street, and it's N this, N that, F this, F that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's got to go both ways. If you want that respect, you have to show it too, I think.
I get you, but that doesn't take into consideration the culture and the history of this culture. If we were all on an even playing field, then we could have that debate. But when race and the color of a skin made me human or not human, vis-a the Constitution of the United States of America, I think we gotta level the playing field first. And I don't think historically we can. I was cargo 500 years ago. I was chattel slavery. My ancestors were. So I think before we can get to isn't it both ways, it's not equal. And in my mind, it can't be. I do understand what your concern is, and I have some of the same concerns. But when we start to talk about doesn't it play both ways, not with, unless we have the same kinds of histories, then we can talk both ways.
But when do we get beyond that? You know, in my history or my past, I don't remember myself or any of my family members chaining anybody in the cargo hold of a boat. That's, you know, when do we start getting beyond that and say the opportunities are there for everyone? And maybe they aren't. I don't know. I've never been discriminated against as far as I know. So it's easy for me to say that it doesn't exist. But, and everybody always throws up the argument, how can we be a racist society? We've got a black president. A very popular black president, by the way, that got a huge amount of the general vote. So when do we start saying, okay, history is history, we can't forget it, the same as we can't forget about the Holocaust or anything else. When do we start moving beyond that and saying, we're all equal, you know?
In a way, not all equal, because there's a lot of disadvantage, and you know, they have and they have not, the poor, and you know, so I'm not sure if it's equal we're looking for. I think we're looking for more like, respect me as a person, and how do you put it out there more, let people understand that we are people and we need to be respected regardless of race, color, or creed, whatever the case may be. I mean, as I said, where I came from, I never had any problem with racism because we're different color or cultures or whatever the case may be. I never, and I gotta be saying that I've never gotten, you know, feeling anybody was racist since I came here about me in general, because I don't look at it that way. It's about the mentality of how you feel. Oh yeah, somebody's gonna call me black because I'm the, no, I don't consider myself that. The point is I'm an individual, and that's what I focus on. Okay, I don't focus on whether you're pink, black, white, or whatever the case may be.
I think there's different ways of looking at it, and I also think that there has to be a common use of terms, because you know, prejudice I think is more along what I think some people are having the conversation about prejudice, others are having the conversation about racism. I think that racism has different meanings and is a different code word. So you talk about privilege, okay, and you know, white privilege would be more in terms of racism, whereas I think many times if an individual is white having the conversation, what they're looking at it is more in terms of prejudice. So I always say, like, clergy has certain privilege. You know, if Bishop Selders walks into the church, he's Bishop Selders. He's not the average clergyman, nor is he a congregant.
Right.
So there's pomp, there's circumstance, there's a certain expectation that people have from him, about him, and others will give him his seat. You know, little old ladies will get up and bow, and Bishop, please sit here. And for him not to sit there would almost be to dishonor her gift of the seat. And I think that if you grow up over an extended period of time as a recipient of that privilege, it becomes the norm. It's the new normal. But if that privilege is somehow abused, and you know, and the clergyman comes in and commands, get up out of the seat, serf. And you know, you get up, and now suddenly it's like, you know, every time he comes, don't say anything. It's the bishop,
right.
You know. And so I think that it's a good conversation to have, and I think it's one we need. That the president says that we need to have this conversation, and I think it's the 20-pound gorilla that's sitting in the room that we never critically have.
Right.
That's the problem. If we don't start having the honest conversations, we're always going to be doomed to the Trayvon Martin type reaction. This is something we need to start talking about, get it out there in the open, and address it and deal with it. You know, and this is probably going to be controversial, but with Trayvon, everybody jumped on that because it was big in the media, it was a hot button issue. How many people did you see protesting in the streets when OJ was acquitted? So the justice system goes both ways. And I'm not going to say there isn't racism, because we see it every day in sentencing. You know, black men get more time for dealing crack than the white guy that gets caught. So it's there, but if we only react in the knee-jerk reactions when something bad happens, if we're not having these conversations every day and working for a change, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, Kevin, I would agree that we need to be working consistently every day. But I would also say that within certain communities, race is a conversation that's often being had. African
Not
Americans.
nearly enough, though. I don't
Well,
think.
not necessarily in the same way or in the public sphere, because it's not necessarily newsworthy. You know, but I would say I talk about race when I address my children. We talk about how you behave and how you, and my mother, you know, she would say, right, no, when you're pulled over by the cops, and you will in our neighborhood, and there's a particular behavior that goes along with that. And what I love when my mother said is, if they don't kill you, I will. If you sass that policeman. So and the spirit of it was, you know, there is a particular way you behave. I think when we talk about, I think you're correct to say we need to be talking about this in multiple ways, on multiple levels, all the time, consistently. But I also think, to your point and your question, that this should public officials be held to a particular standard. You referenced me as a bishop. And as a church person, as a faith leader, I am held to a different standard. We are held to a different standard. Our public officials, our civic and officials are to be held to a different standard. So they should be, and when they are called on it, when they are caught on tape,
Right.
all right, then we have to then act. And I think it is in these places and spaces where a Trayvon Martin issue becomes the catalyst. There never would have been, for example, there never would have been the modern day civil rights movement had it not been Emmett Till's murder and death, along with the Brown versus Board of Education, that allowed for Mrs. Parks' action to be a catalyst together that spawned the Montgomery boycott and the modern day civil rights movement. I think these moments call for us, who knows how, in my language, God moves to call for a catalyst to kind of come that gets the groundswell of attention like this Trayvon Martin case has. But there's something very eerily similar to 60 years ago that now has this nation in many different ways in public discourse around race. And I think that's spirit moving.
Well, I think the Trayvon Martin case, yeah, it was a tragedy. But, you know, all the hype about it, we had vigils here in Hartford for, you know, to address the issue. And my problem was, we have it every day here in the city. How many people can name one of our homicide victims? We've had 12 so far this year. Who in the community can name just one of them? So should it be more that we're addressing the issues in our own community, where much of it is, you know, black men killing black men? Or is it only when something happens 2,000 miles away from us we start getting concerned? Why aren't we addressing what's going on in our own neighborhoods and our own streets and being upset about that?
Well, I think
That's where the change needs to start, in our own neighborhoods.
Yeah, and again, we're very reactive. We are not proactive, and that's what I always say about things in general. We need to be more proactive about things in general, you know, that affects people's lives and in whole. So it's really important for us not to just wait for some tragic thing to happen, then we react, and you know, and then we feel good about the reaction. Is that we have to be on a visual always, you know, making sure we understand people of, you know, of whole, and not, you know, as you said, we're waiting for something to happen so we can all react about it, and then, you know, then it goes away for a while, you know, until something next happens. It has to be something that's an ongoing conversation, you know, in general, so we can understand.
A lot of our reaction to whatever happens is at the hands of the press. And so we become spectators in this grand theater. You know, instead of going to the Coliseum, we sit at home and we watch television or our mobile device and see what the new debate is. I think that if we are in reactionary mode, then, you know, it's obviously not to the benefit of, quote unquote, we the people, because we the people get played, all right? And if we actually have a conversation about race in America, which I don't think we actually will, it's always going to be punch point and reactionary, because a real conversation about race in America ultimately ends with, like in Jamaica or in other countries where it is truly a melting pot and we are all one people. And when that happens, the power elite are in trouble. because we're not divided among all these little groups.
Yes.
And there's an ultimate fail-safe divider, which is
Always.
race and that whole power construct and narrative that helps maintain order.
Yeah.
Because then what happens is you start asking questions like, what is the mayor doing? What is the city council doing? What are our elected officials doing? What are the people who supposedly represent us doing? And, that whole accountability that John talked about, and getting back to what we started off with, if you have somebody working in dispatch and somebody who is broadcasting in the public sphere, or lieutenant speaking, in terms that might give the hearer a sense that you're an occupier in a territory. What standard are they held to? And I believe that the people have to set that standard. If they stay silent, then the standard is okay.
Right.
And the people aren't speaking up.
Right. So that's where it comes in to have constant training about whether it's culture, race, whatever the case may be. But that needs to happen on an ongoing base. And the person who you're putting in position like that need to understand. And I know people are very sensitive about things, but it's really important that when you're serving the people, it's always like you're saying, the customer is always right, even if they're wrong. So you got to make sure that you portray yourself. And again, who is holding people accountable, and who is at the top of that department, and how is that person relate to people in general?
There's an old saying, know them that labor among you, and know them that have the charge over you. And there's rationale and reason for that. It like in politics, Matt Ritter always says this, as well as other politicians. It's all about the relationships. Well, if you don't have a relationship with people,
Right.
you can't expect those individuals to know, understand, or respect you, because they don't know you. And so, are we hiring people and then training and conditioning them as to how to behave publicly? Or do you know those individuals that you put into place, and now there's an expectation that you're not going to treat me like that because I know you better than that?
But that, part of that is one of the benefits of living in a city like Hartford, where you've got to go out and make an effort to experience the different cultures and see what, we're not all that different. When you sit and talk, and I love going out to dinner, having a conversation with people about whether it's St. Lucia or Jamaica or whatever country they've come from, Albania or wherever people are coming here from. And you see, we're not all that different, but there's great things that make people unique. And that's something you wouldn't get living in Oklahoma City or maybe Sanford, Florida, but you can get that here in Hartford, Connecticut, if you put yourself into it. People say to me all the time, you go up to Albany Avenue? Yeah, that's, even just the food and the things you can experience. But you can't live in your little bubble and understand what other people go through and even talking to families. What single parents in Hartford do just to get their kids educated and put food on the table. These are the things you need to talk to people, listen to, and understand what they go through. And I think that's something that, we talk about community policing all the time, but we need to get our police officers more immersed in the society that they're working with.
Right. But then that goes back to a lot to be said, that within our school system, here it is, we have such diversity in our school system. And if you look at our police department, why is it always majority white men? Why isn't there more diversity on our police department?
Part of that is, we don't mentor our youth. You get in trouble once, and that kind of knocks you out of being a police officer. We need to work with our kids, many of them coming from homes without fathers, where the discipline isn't there, the direction isn't there. We need to start at an early age in our high schools, identifying kids that may want to be police officers. That's our minority recruiting program.
And that was the reason why we had talked a couple of years ago about, having an officer in the school so they could be more a mentor to
But are
these
they
kids.
doing
But
it?
it turned the other way around. It became a place
pre-prison program.
Exactly. So again, it goes back to the fact that here it is. We have the PAL program. I'm not sure how many kids in there, but this is a real. This chief has become so positive about getting our children to that point where they can say, when they get to high school, they'll stay record free of any negative and stuff like that. And that's why it is so important for a program like this to happen. So these kids can decide whether I want to get involved with fire or police or whatever.
I think those are good programs, but I don't think they actually hit to the issue of why you may have a preponderance or more of one type of officer than another, whether more white officers more Latino officers or Hispanic officers or black officers or Asian officers. I mean, there's 76 different ethnic groups here in the city. How many Bosnian officers do we have?
But you look at the department, you see.
But all of that starts at your policy setting level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a matter of, well, geez, we got to take 20 years to train a kid up from the womb to be cop ready.
Right.
But you really do, though, because if you look at our fire department, we have a very diverse fire department. But
policies are different at the fire department.
Exactly. The statutes are different. You use marijuana or have a minor arrest,
you can still be a part of fire department.
But a firefighter, and I don't mean this to be a negative thing, but we've had firefighters that admitted to using heroin, cocaine, had serious arrests, and if they deem you to be suitable, you get hired. As far as, there's state statutes that prevent you from doing that. So I think the mentoring is very important.
But I would echo that it takes leadership.
Yeah.
To establish and to shift it. We asked our superintendent of schools, who said it's going to take forever to write our school board. We said that's unacceptable. Mm-hmm. I think in the same way, I am in support of leadership standing and saying, listen, we've got to change the course, the atmosphere. There is a culture of fear, and I think that's what's driving race and any kind of difference that then gets deemed as lesser than.
But I know we're getting the 2-minute warning here, but
we're about to close it.
John, one of the things, and Hyacinth and myself talked about this yesterday, is the conditions of our schools, the outside. They're overgrown, the weeds are 4 feet high. How do you expect kids walking into that building to take pride in their education and their school
those are
when the outside looks like, exactly.
Leadership.
And a principal has to walk by that every day to get into school.
I'm with that.
Those are leadership issues, and leadership makes all the difference in the world. Mm-hmm. And if leadership said, to quote the great Harrison Ford in his role as president of the United States in the movie Air Force One, that's the policy. Get behind it. When the Pope speaks, things change.
Yeah, it's about leadership.
It's about leadership. Unfortunately, Hartford doesn't have leadership. But don't worry.
You're gonna get the phone call now.
We're here. We're back.
Right there. We're back.
All right, my friends. Our numbers will come up on the screen. You can text us, email us, call us. And if you have a complaint, a comment, or a criticism, as always, have the guts to come to us personally. Ciao.
The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote.